ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government, he feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the criminal,
I know that
in the criminal case, no.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
Everyone knew Diddy's trial was going to be messy, full of celebrity scandal, power abuse, NDAs, and years of whispered rumors finally spilling out in legal language.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange. He was selected to be the demon that he is, to keep the culture in line so the industry could continue for all of its precious jewels. We have too many lost. The list of lost is ridiculous, and everyone knows Diddy was selected for this job. He's the Judas.
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you.
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
But what no one expected was for the judge, the jury, and the public to suddenly hear Andrew Tate's name spoken in the same breath.
What made you come here to support Puff?
Right. He supported Puff because he's innocent, and I'm wholeheartedly believing he's innocent, and I know he's innocent. So
you say you know he's innocent?
1,000%.
Would you be open to a plea bargain?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent. And what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors. He did, and when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
The moment it happened, the courtroom paused. not just because of the surprise, but because of what it implied.
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
No, the deck is stacked against him. They've got a ton of evidence. Take the plea deal, dude. Just take it.
Well, my guess is that because we don't know the deal of the plea deal. At least I don't think we do.
True. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's...
Back up a little bit, please.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
The name wasn't slipped in by a journalist or an observer. It came up inside the trial, out loud, on record, connected to the narrative of abuse, power, and control. And immediately, everyone realized this trial wasn't just about Diddy anymore.
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him.
Elaborate, sometimes days-long parties by coercing victims through drugs, threats, and manipulation. They claim to have video evidence, and some of the accusations echo details from over 70 civil lawsuits filed against Combs over the last 30 years.
You guys weren't even 18 years old. You couldn't escape. You couldn't get out of there. There were so many times I tried to intervene. There was a lot of times.
This is going to be such a massive trial, like maybe the biggest Hollywood trial. God knows which way it's going to go. Is it going to go on for weeks?
For sure, weeks.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
According to reports from inside the room, the name was referenced during a line of questioning about patterns of behavior. A witness allegedly drew a parallel, not in terms of specific actions, but in how powerful men use their influence to manipulate people, particularly women, behind closed doors. And the example brought up? Andrew Tate. Whether that mention was spontaneous or strategic, we don't know yet.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
There's an arrest coming. There's actually 2 arrests that are already made. There's a 3rd one coming. I don't know why people are sitting on this. I'm ready. I see that some people are not. I've been ready. A lot of you are ready. Like, let's get this over with, right?
The ripple effect? Immediate. Because you have 2 men, 2 massive followings, 2 reputations built on dominance, luxury, control, and silence. And now, 2 names floating in the same legal universe, connected by the same type of allegations.
Isn't that, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that there's celebrity tapes, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow that this is Epstein redux or something.
The biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
The second the Tate reference left someone's mouth, the courtroom locked in. But outside the walls, the internet went into full conspiracy mode. Some were shocked, some were skeptical, and others not surprised at all. People started pulling receipts, comparing timelines, matching behavior. An old interview Tate gave about power over women started resurfacing, this time in the context of Diddy's alleged freak-off parties. The comparisons weren't perfect, but the vibes, they were close enough to make the entire internet nervous. So let's stop here for a second, because I want to ask you directly, do you think the Tate name drop was a warning shot, or just a courtroom distraction meant to stir the media? I'll be real with you. I think it was intentional. You don't say that name in a federal trial unless you want the world to start connecting dots. And judging by the headlines, it worked. Andrew Tate didn't stay quiet either. Just days after the mention, he posted online questioning why Diddy was getting attention when others in the industry have done worse. Some took it as shade, others read it as deflection. But either way, he acknowledged it, and that made the connection stronger. Now people are asking if this was a subtle nod from the prosecution, a warning that more names could come. Bigger names, global names, names that weren't supposed to be part of this story, but are starting to bleed into it anyway. Because this trial, it's not about isolated events anymore. It's about who gets protected and who doesn't. Diddy and Andrew Tate built empires off being untouchable. One ruled hip-hop and luxury, the other ruled podcasts and male-dominated platforms. Both had women surrounding them. Both had millions of fans defending them. And now, both are walking the razor edge of public accountability. So the mention of Tate's name, whether legal strategy or just a courtroom slip, has done more than trend. It's exposed the undercurrent. That these cases, they're not isolated. They're systemic. And someone finally said it in court. Let's be clear. Courtroom strategy is rarely random. You don't just accidentally mention Andrew Tate during a federal trial unless you're sending a message. Whether that message was directed at the media, the judge, or someone behind the scenes, it landed. Insiders close to the case say the reference wasn't part of the original filing, which means it was added during questioning. That alone tells us one thing. The prosecution might be laying a foundation, not just for Diddy's guilt, but to establish a pattern of cultural enablers. They're not just prosecuting one man, they're dragging an entire type of man into the light. Men who profit off control, off silence, off the backs of women who were either too afraid or too silenced to fight back. And by mentioning Tate, they're saying, this isn't a Diddy issue, this is a systemic one. What's important here is that no one said Diddy and Tate knew each other personally. There's no legal link yet, but there doesn't have to be. What the court seems to be doing is drawing parallels. Both Diddy and Tate are men accused of creating environments where women were allegedly manipulated, threatened, or coerced. Both surrounded themselves with teams, influencers, and networks designed to protect their image, even when that image was built on intimidation. Both claim innocence. Both say they're targets of cancel culture, and both have fan bases ready to defend them no matter what comes out. So, even without a direct connection, the court may be making a rhetorical point. If it walks like it, talks like it, monetizes like it, maybe it's part of the same beast. Diddy's team has tried hard to frame the allegations as isolated incidents. One accuser, one lawsuit, no pattern, no history. But with the Tate mention, that narrative starts to fall apart. Because now, the defense isn't just arguing against specific charges. They're fighting against a cultural framework. One that already has headlines, Reddit threads, YouTube essays, and podcasts connecting all the dots before the trial even finishes. And let's be real. Once public opinion starts making those links, it's almost impossible to undo. So here's where I want your take. And don't hold back. Do you think prosecutors brought up Andrew Tate as part of a bigger takedown? Or was this just a tactic to sway media coverage? Personally, I think it's both. The media is the courtroom now, and they know how to use it. Keep in mind, Andrew Tate isn't even on trial in the US yet. His major cases are based in the UK and Romania. But his name has weight. Controversy, reaction. By pulling him into the Diddy trial even lightly, the prosecution tapped into something culturally powerful, because Tate represents the public side of what Diddy allegedly built behind closed doors. Tate talks about submission openly. Diddy did it, allegedly, in private. Tate brands it as discipline. Diddy's accusers call it control. And now, those ideas are colliding in a courtroom that was supposed to be focused on one man, but suddenly feels like it's on trial for a generation's worth of hidden abuse. This trial was already a media storm, but now, with the Tate name swirling inside it, it's gone global. Tate's name brings in a different audience, one that wasn't paying attention to Diddy's case, one that now has to, because if their hero is getting mentioned in connection to these kinds of allegations, even indirectly, it becomes impossible to separate them. And that's exactly what the court might want, because if you bring in one loud name, the rest start showing up on their own. And Diddy's lawyers, they're running out of ways to keep the focus on just him. The courtroom didn't just react to the Andrew Tate mention, it tightened. But the real tension, it's happening behind the scenes. PR firms, agents, executives, YouTubers, influencers, ex-collaborators, everyone who's ever been close to. Diddy's inner circle is now watching this trial and thinking the same thing. What if my name comes up next? And that's not paranoia, it's strategy. Because the prosecution's move to mention Tate wasn't just a cultural flex, it was a legal signal. This trial is about more than Diddy. They've opened the door. And now, everyone who ever walked through it with him is up for review. Let's get brutally honest. Powerful men don't build these kinds of worlds alone. They build them with enablers, staff, collaborators, people who saw too much, said too little, or, in some cases, actively participated. And now that a courtroom is drawing comparisons to Andrew Tate's world, it's only natural that people are asking, if Diddy's name is on the front of the case, whose names are buried in the footnotes? Producers, security teams, fellow artists who were just in the room? The more this trial unravels, the more it starts to look like a blueprint. And that's terrifying for anyone who's ever been part of that blueprint. Multiple sources close to the legal teams say more names are being vetted behind the scenes. Not celebrities necessarily, but people connected to the party houses, the NDA-covered events, the alleged freak-offs. And here's what that does. It puts everyone who's ever worked with Diddy under a different kind of spotlight. Not because they're accused of anything yet, but because proximity is now suspicion. This is how high-profile trials shift. First, it's about one man. Then it becomes about his world. And finally, it becomes about everyone who stayed quiet inside it. What's happening now in entertainment circles isn't public yet, but according to insiders, private group chats are already buzzing. Contracts are being reviewed. Former collaborators are distancing themselves. Some have quietly unfollowed Diddy. Others are preparing just-in-case statements. And here's the kicker. A few entertainment lawyers are saying there are sealed names connected to Diddy's case that haven't been released yet, which means this story is still expanding. So I'll ask you what the internet's already debating. Do you think the mention of Tate was just the start, and that more shocking celebrity names are about to follow? Honestly, if this trial keeps moving like it is, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how soon. Here's where we land. Diddy is on trial, but with the mention of Andrew Tate, the case has jumped boundaries. It's no longer about just one man or even one industry. It's about power, male-dominated brands, online cult followings, and the machinery that protects them. This case is pulling names, reputations, platforms, and putting them under a microscope, not to destroy them, but to finally ask, how much did you know? And how long did you stay quiet? Because if a courtroom in Los Angeles can casually drop the name of a British influencer with pending charges in another country, nobody's off limits anymore. When Diddy walked into court, he brought more than a reputation. He brought an entire economy with him. Think about it. How many brands have partnered with him? How many artists rose through his empire? How many influencers built their aesthetic? Off the luxury and power image he created, now that image is contaminated, and the people who profited from it, they're nervous. One entertainment lawyer put it bluntly, no brand wants to be in the same sentence as a sex trafficking case, even if it's just a past collaboration. That's why partnerships are freezing. Sponsors are rethinking. Even independent creators who once posted photos from his parties are quietly taking content down. Because this isn't just a PR storm, it's a contamination zone. Let's talk about the real power players in celebrity damage control, NDAs. For years, Diddy's team relied on non-disclosure agreements to keep everything locked up. Alleged victims, staff, performers, even collaborators. If you saw something, you signed something. But here's the thing, NDAs can't protect you from federal subpoenas. And now that Andrew Tate's name has been pulled into this case, the scope is changing. Legal teams are digging deeper. Prosecutors are connecting cultural behavior with criminal patterns, and that means past NDAs may be reviewed or straight up overridden if they contain evidence of coercion, abuse, or systemic cover-ups. Multiple industry insiders are now reconsidering what they once signed because staying quiet might have protected you then, but now it might make you look complicit. Remember how many influencers used to flock to Diddy's events? VIP sections, private islands, branded liquor partnerships, music video cameos. It was a lifestyle, and posting about it was part of the package. Now, those same creators are silent. You won't find apology videos or public statements, just vanishing stories, scrubbed captions, a sudden shift in content. Because the smart ones know, once your face shows up in the background of a scandal, it only takes one TikTok to flip your whole career. And the ones who don't speak up, they might be next to get called out, because the audience is paying attention now. They're watching who distances themselves and who disappears until the dust clears. Here's the trap most collaborators fall into. I wasn't involved. I was just there. But with the scale of what's being alleged, just being there at the parties, the yachts, the exclusive invite-only events, puts people in legal gray zones, not criminally in most cases, but reputationally. That gray area is where careers die, because if Diddy's trial drags more stories into the open and other names get mentioned, the public isn't going to ask, "Were you part of it?" They're going to ask, "Why didn't you say something?" And that's where the real damage starts. We've already seen it with Tate. His brand took a hit, not from charges, but from association. Now Diddy's heading down the same path. And if this trial keeps expanding, if more names start leaking, if more receipts come out, we're looking at a brand extinction event, not just for Diddy, but for every artist, company, and content creator that built their image on that world. Because once trust is broken and silence starts to look like consent, audiences don't forget. And the biggest twist? This might not even be the biggest name to fall. Every decade has its trial, the one that says more about the system than the person in the hot seat. For the 2000s, it was Michael Jackson. For the 2010s, it was Harvey Weinstein. And now, it's Diddy. Not because he's the biggest name, not even because the allegations are new, but because this case is dragging the entire machine into the light on NDAs. Brand silence, influencer complicity, label executives, celebrity protection networks. It's all being exposed, piece by piece. And the mention of Andrew Tate? That wasn't random. That was a signal, a sign that this trial isn't just about accountability. It's about recalibration. There was a time when men like Diddy and Tate felt invincible. They built empires, fan bases, entire online ecosystems around being unbothered. They were too rich, too powerful, too popular to cancel. But this trial, it's showing us something new. Not only can these figures fall, they can drag others down with them. Because once the public decides your image is toxic, brands walk. Collaborators jump ship. Even your own team starts calculating whether to stay loyal or save themselves. And if Diddy goes down in court, or even in the court of public opinion, it will be proof that nobody stays untouchable forever. There's something happening now that we haven't seen in past scandals. People are paying attention to who stood by. It's not enough to say, "That wasn't me." Now the questions are, did you defend him? Did you benefit from him? Did you post a picture, drop a collab, share a stage? And influencers, especially the ones who were there when it was convenient, are about to face a new kind of backlash. Because silence isn't neutral anymore. It's incriminating. Here's the hard truth most celebrities still haven't accepted. Even if Diddy walks away legally clean, the stain doesn't fade. This case has already shifted public opinion. The way we talk about fame, power, men who abuse both. It's changed. The way brands vet who they work with. It's forced creators to think about who they co-sign. It's making fans ask better questions and demand better answers. So even if this ends with no jail time, the cultural damage is permanent. And the ripple effect? We haven't even seen the worst of it yet. So let's land here. Not on scandal, but responsibility. You've heard the testimony. You've seen the headlines. You know how this works by now. The question isn't, is Diddy guilty? The question is, how many people had to stay quiet to keep this going as long as it did? And that's what I want to ask you right now. Do you think we're finally ready to hold powerful men accountable? Or will this just become another media circus we forget next week? Personally, I don't think this one's going away. Not when names like Andrew Tate are getting pulled into the courtroom. Not when the entire system is being put on trial with them. And I'll be watching. Because this isn't the end. It's the opening credits to something way bigger. If you're watching this shift happen in real time like I am, hit like, subscribe, and tap that bell. Because the Diddy trial is just one chapter, and the next name might already be on the list.